Hello everybody. Hello world. This is a new adventure for me. Going about making a video in the park as I walk. I hope it comes out good. This is the idea that I'd like to share and create together today. It occurs to me that to be alive is very much to be at risk of dying. You know, it's almost as if life and death on a certain level create one another, right? Death is the absence of life, life is the absence of death. I mean, it could be said in that way. So, from a certain perspective, to be alive is to be at risk of dying. What's interesting is that there are people who really take that to an extreme because they think, oh, if I really want to experience vitality, if I really want to experience heightened vitality, if I want to experience heightened aliveness, let me heighten the risk of death. So, you know, skydiving, or there's a whole bunch of kind of high risk adventures or games or entertainment that people can indulge in and engage in. And there's something about that gives them a rush, an adrenaline rush, a sense of excitement, a heightened experience of being alive, right? So that's one way of using this idea that to be alive is to be at risk of death, is to go ahead and engage in something that increases the risk of death. And so in that moment, you actually get an increased experience of vitality. I mean, this can be so potent that it can become an addiction, right? People will engage in ever more increasingly risky behaviors or activities just because of the aliveness, the sense of vitality that is released in their being and in their experience through elevating the degree of risk. The thing is, first of all, very often those actually end up in death, which usually is not really the intention. But moreover, what happens when a person takes that path is that it's short-lived. It's like a spike, right? It's like a momentary rush of vitality or experience by increasing the level of risk of death in the particular behavior or adventure. But it's like a rush. It's a moment and then it dissipates, right? It doesn't have longevity to it. It's not really sustainable. It doesn't really provide a person with a kind of ongoing, reliable experience of fullness of being and of vitality. So how can we riff and take this idea that to be alive is to be at risk of dying and utilize it and catalyze it in a way that results in a consistent and kind of slow cooking and over time expanding and intensifying, increasing experience of aliveness and manifestation of vitality? And the answer seems to be through putting more at risk, right? Not through raising the risk, not through increasing the risk, but through putting more at risk. So what do I mean by that? To increase the risk is to do something in which there's a higher risk of death. To put more at risk is a whole different game. It's to bring forth more of the self into manifestation and into expression. So everyone has within them a divine spirit and gifts and talents and passions, resources, resourcefulness as a divine expression in this world. And what I mean put more at risk is bring forth more of that from latency and from potentiality into expression and into actuality, right? So that's what I mean when I say put more at risk. Bring forth more of the self from the safety of latency, from the safety of potentiality, into the at-riskness of being in expression, of being in emergence, of being actualized, of being fulfilled on, right? So if I have a talent or a passion, for example, me, I coach people professionally now, but I did it for most of my life. I was doing the same 4 things over and over, albeit getting better and better at them, and becoming more successful and effective at them. But I was doing the same 4 things for about 15 years since I was 14. Scribing, the Torah scroll, training for bar mitzvah, leading the services in the synagogue, and reading the Torah scroll on the Sabbath. But there was more of me that had yet to come out, that had yet to be brought forth. During all that time, I had been through a spiritual, psychological, emotional, intellectual journey and evolution, right? And I learned so much, be it in therapy, be it in 12-step programs, be it from teachers, be it from books, be it from experiences. And there was now so much more in me to be brought out into the world, to be offered to others, such that others could gain access to expanded awareness for themselves, such that others can get a greater access to fulfilling on their purpose, and creating more joy and love and peace and happiness and alignment in their own being. So as long as I wasn't acting on that, as long as I wasn't showing up as a leader, as a coach, sharing of myself, offering to be of service in that way, so less of me was at risk, right? Because I couldn't be told no, I couldn't be rejected, right? Because I wasn't bringing forth that leadership aspect into expression for it to have the opportunity to be engaged and in interaction with people. So to the extent that I was keeping that secret, or to the extent that I was keeping that in potential alone, to the extent that I was keeping that latent in my being, I wasn't bringing it forth. I wasn't putting myself at risk, or putting it at risk. So in bringing it forth, in choosing to lean into that edge, in choosing to dare take action of leadership, take inspired action, put myself out, offer of my services, look for opportunities to share of myself and give. As I do that, I'm bringing more of myself out from the recesses of my being up front, putting it at risk, right? Putting myself at risk in more ways than I had been before, creating more opportunities for my ego to get bruised, for me to get rejection, for me to be made fun of or laughed at, or whatever makes, bringing ourselves forth feel risky to us and scary. However, the reward is life is the risk of death. So to the extent that I bring forth more of myself and put more of me at risk, I am that much more alive. I am that much more vital, that much more fulfilled. The divine purpose for which I'm here is that much more actualized and expressed. The world is that much more transformed. Existence is moved that much more in the direction of whatever intention created it to begin with. So, to bring it home, to be alive is to be at risk of dying. But rather than increasing the risk, put more of yourself at risk. Bring forth more of yourself from latency, from potentiality, from being hidden and tucked away in the recesses of your beingness. Bring it forth, nudge it closer and closer to the surface and into expression so that more of you is actually at risk. And in so doing, you experience an ongoingly deepening and broadening aliveness and vitality. So don't increase the risk, but put more of you at risk. And in that, you become more and more alive. That's the idea. I'm grateful I've gotten to share it with you. If this resonates with you in any way, if it's meaningful to you in any way, please share about that with me. I'd love to hear about that. And if you'd love to connect, we can do that too. Be alive. Put yourself up to something. Put more of yourself up to something. And be more alive. I love you all.